Hello, everybody. It's Michael Jaco with Unleashing Intuition Secrets. We have William E. Simpson, the second back, Wild Horse Fire Brigade. And we're going to be talking about glyphosate and how they want to use it to, take down the herbivores around Lake Tahoe and poison everything. And they're using emergency act, kind of like they did with COVID, so they can get this stuff through and no one can say anything. But we're basically bringing awareness to everybody. And William, thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. I mean, it's very concerning when they want to use something like glyphosate is a very serious chemical, and it's very biologically active. And when they've been using it on the Caldor fire scar already, and apparently they've used a little bit of sleight of hand administrative trickery to actually apply a lot more than what they said they were going to do. And they may even be dialing it up to use it even more prolifically. And it's glyphosate is an interesting thing because it's a glycine analog. So your body, when your body gets it, or any other animal sees it or gets it inside, it mistakes it for glycine, and it can integrate it into collagen, and
Wow.
and it causes all kinds of problems. I mean, it's a carcinogen. There's big problems with it. When you put it on the soil, it kills all the microbiome, and then, I mean, there's a long list of things. I don't know where you want to begin, Mike, but there's a long list of adverse, and I don't even know if they're unintended side effects. I think these people understand what this is going to do.
Really? Wow. That's crazy. It's kind of like, they created the COVID flu to, bring in the vaccine that was really destructive to the human race. Why do these psychopaths do this kind of stuff? I mean, we've talked about how the wild horses could go in and control, the herbivore, and keep it under control. And you've talked about how there was like this huge fire that was coming through, and where you had the wild horses, that's where the fire stopped, right at that point.
Right.
So obvious,
Well,
you have evidence that they can, do incredible things.
yeah, we know from empirical experience, hundreds of years of empirical experience, when you have available fuel and an ignition source, you're going to have a fire. And so, and the thing about fire, and anybody who has a fireplace or a stove knows these things, when you need more heat, you add more fuel, right? In my cabin here, when it gets a little too cold, we throw extra logs in, and boom, suddenly we can get the cabin up to 85 degrees. Um, Heat is a function of fuel. And because we are herbivory, which are all the critters that eat grass and brush, deer, elk, even rabbits, and even insects. I mean, even insects can be a very powerful herbivore. Like in Nevada, they've got the Mormon crickets. And when you get a swarm of crickets or locusts, they can just take down a whole pasture. And they're herbaceous insects that, they eat grass too, and other things, crops, and you name it. So, but in California, our big problem is we've mismanaged our wildlife, especially the deer and the elk. The herds are way down. In California, we're way down. In the whole West Coast, we're way down. In California, we're down about 1.5 million deer, and that is relevant because that many deer, we're talking over a couple million tons of annual grass and brush. And that's the key word, annual grass and brush. It comes back under normal circumstances every year. So if you prescribe burn it, it comes back the next year. And in the process of prescribed burning, when you have too much grass and brush because you have no deer and elk anymore, or very few because of mismanagement, it burns abnormally hot. And the government is even starting to admit it now, because it's kind of like CYA, right? I mean, at some point they're going to lose their qualified immunity. There's this balance in the law. You know, people, elected officials, county commissioners, supervisors, Congress people, called the Congress critters, they have what they call qualified immunity. But there's a place in the law where when you engage in gross negligence, you lose your qualified immunity. Once there's gross negligence proved, you lose your shield. That goes away and you become personally liable.
Mm.
So the stakes, all of a sudden, it's like double jeopardy suddenly. And so they know what's happening, and the either willfully ignorant, or there's monetization involved that will drive a certain model that's not good for the people or the landscape or the wildlife. The deer and elk are way down, and we know for a fact that the fuel in California, the grass and brush, is out of control, and that's why we have these big fires. Because
Yeah.
when you have grass and brush,
Every year, this year is probably going to be really bad because we had a lot of rain this winter. And I remember I've lived in California, almost half my life, and on and off, being in the military, going all over the place, but still half my life. And we get big rains in the winter and we get big fires in the summer. It's crazy, but they never manage the land. It's crazy. And you talked about this we've done a couple of shows, but you talked about this, how why don't they do that? It's because it's a money-making scheme that they have, where they have these huge fires and they come in and have all these fire crews come in, and they're going to the hotels and eating food, and they're getting paid. And so it's a big money-making scam to keep these fires going.
Yeah, it's I saw a cartoon, it's probably like 6 years ago, and it shows some executives in a building looking out the window at a massive wildfire, and this one executive says to the other, "We have to figure out how to monetize this immediately." And that cartoon is so dead on,
Yeah,
and but that's exactly what's happening now. It's I grew up in the country here in the mountains up here. I was a logger, rancher. We made money logging. And then the nice thing about being a logger is we had all these giant slash piles. And back in the day, when you're cutting down trees that are 3-4 foot at the butt, when you limb it, you're getting nice fireplace logs. The limbs are nice logs so we would go back after in the weekends when we weren't logging for Weyerhaeuser or whoever, and we would do wood cutting and sell firewood. So we would go up there, and the limbs that we took off these big trees, we chop them up into logs and stack them in our trucks and take them down and sell them for $200-300 a cord. And so we spent a lot of time in the woods, and I learned quite a bit about forestry, just working for different people in the woods. And my brother-in-law was a Klamath tribal member, and he learned how to log from his dad, which was the old way. The sustainable logging was important. We never cut we called them the grandfather trees on the ridge, which are the big seed trees. So if you cut the slope, then the big seed trees up the ridge will reseed it naturally. And so, but when the spotted owl came, all of that came to an end. The U.S. Forest Service, when I was logging, was about their energy, and all their budget was for sustainable timber harvest. But then, because we let some crazy environmentalists convince people that the spotted owl was victimized by loggers, which turned out to be completely wrong.
Yeah.
It's actually the barred owl was eating the spotted owl. The barred owl is a big badass owl, and it was wiping out the smaller spotted owls, taking over all of its terrain. But
now we know.
Yeah, once we got kicked out of the woods because we were the bad guys killing the spotted owls, right? That was the allegations, which were completely false. The Forest Service, the U.S. Forest Service, said, well, now what are we going to do? We're not in the sustainable timber harvest anymore. We closed down all the mills. All the loggers sold their saws because we were all going broke. And of course, it was a summer job for me because I was going to school at Oregon State. But
nice.
They just figured out how to make money with the forest anyway, which is basically managing fire, managing large forest fires like they were prescribed burn. And so now what they're doing is just like what you say. Our county, Siskiyou County now, and they won't say it, and this is my conspiracy, which is when I see the fire season start, I see the hotels and restaurants fill up here
Yep.
with all fire service people. There's vendors for the fires. There's these guys, those guys, the other guys. Everybody is getting paid, and so we've become dependent on disaster now for income. And
Jesus.
this is really a bad paradigm because now we know that the smoke is killing tens of thousands of Californians and Western United people in the Western US and in Canada. The smoke now, because it's so hot, has new toxins. It's a different
Yep.
chemistry. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they call that pyrochemistry, and for the audience to understand it, and this is rock solid science. This isn't conspiracy. When you let's say we put three things in a test tube and we heat it up at 800 degrees or 1,000 degrees, you're going to get certain resulting compounds every time you do it. The experiment is consistent. Then if you take the same three things, put it in the test tube, and you heat it up at 1,500 or 2,000, you get brand new compounds. Okay, so it's a function of the heat in the chemical oxidation combustion process. And so the fires are so hot because of all the fuel, because of, no more deer, no more lawnmowers. Elmer Fudd ran around and shot all the lawnmowers. Of course, it's not just Elmer Fudd. It's vehicular accidents and some disease. Chronic wasting is coming into California now. We don't know how bad it is because they never tell you the truth until it's like too late. They wait till
Mm-hmm.
the cat's out of the bag, and then they tell you after it's like, oh, by the way, it's the CDC blew the whistle on chronic wasting disease. It's in 29 states now, epidemic. But you don't see people talking about that because prion disease, chronic wasting disease, is based on a prion. It's a misshapen protein. It's not a bacteria. It's not a virus. So it's a protein. And so when deer get that, and Dr. Mark Zabel told me this, he's an assistant professor of prion research at the Prion Research Center in Fort Collins, Colorado. He said, Bill, because it's a protein and the vector is vegetative material, cows can get it. They can get it from the deer and the elk that are spreading it, because it comes from urine and feces on the vegetative material. So if a cow or a sheep eats it, they get it. It's called mad cow or BSE in cows or
Right.
scrapies in sheep. And if we eat contaminated meat, we get it, and it's called Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. Every case is fatal. There is no treatment. You get it, you die. You're done. It's a death sentence. So they're monetizing the fire now because they haven't figured out that sustainable timber harvest is really where we need to be, because you don't have the smoke that's killing. And by the way, the smoke, because of UCLA study, that should have been front page news on the LA Times. UCLA study, and anybody in your audience, Google this: UCLA death toll wildfire smoke. This is not conspiracy. This is an 11-year study by a major university. Okay, this is UCLA we're talking about. And UCLA found that 5,000 Californians die prematurely from wildfire smoke every year. These are people that would have not died except for breathing this smoke. And what it's all about, just so we know, is that, and that's just California. During the course of the 11-year study, 55,000 Californians died prematurely, and the impact of that was $435 billion. Just in California, $435 billion. Now that's a big number. Most people probably can't even get their head around that number, but we're talking about the kind of money that runs the whole U.S. government kind of money. $435 billion. That's serious. And so, yeah, there's the study right there. So, and right there at the top, you can see where it says that. But what we need to do is
that's just in California.
Correct.
52 to 55,000 in the 11 years. So that's, at least 5,000 a year. And if you translate that into all the other states, what are your thoughts? How many per year are dying?
Well, that's a really good question, Mike. I had the same question myself. And so what I did is I took that study, and there's a brand new study out about the smoke from the American Chemical Society, by the way, ACS. American Chemical Society came out with a study in December of 2025, brand new. It's only 5 months old. And they said, oh, we've been looking at the smoke, And I know they've been reading some of my research. Since my wife died from the smoke in 2019,
Yeah, I'm
I
glad you brought
started
that up.
writing.
Unfortunately, your wife died from this problem, the smoke, and
Right.
it
Yeah.
wasn't a death. So I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I talked to when she was, it's the smoke. It took a long time to kill her. She was a tough, healthy girl, a country
Yeah.
girl,
Mm.
perfect, no comorbidities, never took any drugs. I mean, a good Christian. Bottom line is the chemicals in the smoke now are new. They're novel, but I couldn't put my hand. I didn't have a lab. I couldn't study the smoke. So I kept talking about novel compounds in the smoke, and then I started talking to people around the world, and because the doctors she was at the major clinic up there in Portland, Oregon Health Science University. That's
Mm.
our version of UCLA in Portland,
Yeah.
and Portland, Oregon. And so she had a whole team of neurologists. These are the top guys, Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic. They were scratching their heads that we don't know what's killing her. And I kept telling, they did every test in the book. And I said, look, I think it's the smoke here. It's Occam's razor. When you eliminate everything else, what's left is probably what it is. And I said, she didn't get sick until after the smoke. And I
Mm.
got lung damage from it, from being on the fire line 9 days. So I kept writing about it, and then lo and behold, in 2024, the UCLA study came out, and I go, well, there you go. She was one of the 5,000 that got dead,
Ah.
and then the ACS study came out just 5 months ago, American Chemical Society study, saying they've been looking at the smoke and they've determined that there's 21% more stuff in the smoke than we knew about. And the stuff that we didn't know about until just recent, 5 months ago, are these new forms of volatile organic compounds that are in the class of carcinogens. So when you breathe these things, if you're genetically susceptible, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a second, but if you're genetically susceptible, which my wife was, it can kill you. It can affect your liver. You get an autoimmune degenerative disease. It can attack your brain. In her case, it was her brain, or your heart, or your lungs, or your liver, or your spleen. So what I mean by that is that when if we look at, for instance, the 1918 great flu pandemic, okay, the Spanish flu that killed 50 million people at least worldwide. Well, we didn't know much about virus or bacteria in 1918. We were still like, in the Stone Age on that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there were people with just taking care of people bleeding out their eyes and ears. I mean, it's like a plague, dying. And those people that took care of all the dying people never got sick. Why? Well, it's because they were genetically resistant. They had genetics in their body so they could develop an immune factor that would protect them from the virus. They never got it.
Wow.
So, and that's why genetic diversity is important in a species, because
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have so many different genetic profiles that there'll be certain people or animals that when a disease comes, they won't die because they have these special assets that God gave them. And it's through coevolutionary processes with disease and with the environment. And it's, Mother Nature, humans forget, we think we're not subject to natural selection. Well, that's just ignorant speak right there. Damn right we're subject to it. When these diseases come through, that's Mother Nature saying, okay, it's time to test the human population. And people get dead from these different diseases because they didn't have the immunity that was based on a genetic profile. So with regard to going back to the smoke and the fire,
Mm-hmm.
what I did is I took these two studies, the UCLA study and the American Chemical Society study. I dropped it into the supercomputer, and I said, please extrapolate what this would represent in premature deaths on the west and costs for that on the west coast of the United States, so all the western states combined, because
Mm-hmm.
the western states are being hammered right now. And the computer said that it's going to be about 36,000 people dead prematurely every year. So 36,000 premature deaths every year, men, women, and children. And the cost of that is $218 billion a year. And these are health related costs and loss of productivity. It's not property and casualty. That's another 50 billion to the
Hmm.
insurance industry. That's another 50 billion. So when I talk to people about Wild Horse Fire Brigade and talk about the collapsed herbivory, well, first of all, a lot of people don't even know what an herbivory is, shockingly. The government's got everybody so dumbed down these days. People don't understand and they don't even want to take the time to learn, even when their life is on the line. This is need to know information, Michael. I mean, and the thing is this: these new compounds, okay, these new volatile organic compounds are different than PM 2.5. They can become that. They can coalesce into a larger particle, but when they don't coalesce, they go right through your mask and into your cells. They go right through the cell wall. They go right into the mitochondria.
Wow.
That's how small they are. So,
Jesus.
and then they trick your genetics into doing things. Like in my wife's case, it tricked her own antibodies into believing her brain was a pathogen. So her own antibodies attacked her brain.
Damn.
And of course, it can manifest in different ways. It can convince your antibodies to attack your liver or your heart or your spleen or your lungs. So anyway, so we know the chemistry, and
Along this way, you know that we have the chemtrailing, and the chemtrailing, they know there's aluminum in them, and part of that could be they're trying to get rid of the when they create aluminum, there's like the residue from that, and they just like, okay, you guys can like just drop it from aircraft, but the trees are getting this aluminum, and that causes them to really burn at a higher intensity too. So with that burning, someone had it in the chat, and I was like, wow, that's interesting. A possibility that some of that is getting into the air, and that's also part of the problem with us breathing some of that.
right. So what happens is Raytheon has the patents on integrating nanoparticle aluminum into jet fuel,
Right.
and the way they sell it to everybody is that it increases combustion efficiency in the jet engines, which
Yes.
it does. It gives you a few percent beneficial. You get a little bit more mileage per gallon, if you will. Okay,
Hmm.
but okay, so when normally in a normal jet engine, when you burn fuel, you do get water vapor, and so at altitude where it's below freezing, when the water vapor comes out the back of the jet engine with the hot exhaust, it turns to ice. Okay, so you'll see a contrail, and that's just ice crystals, okay, at altitude. And then what happens is the ice crystals sublimate. So they go from a solid water, which is ice, to a gas. At that altitude, they sublimate. They don't turn into the liquid phase. The water has three phases: solid, liquid, gaseous. Okay, that's the three phases of water. So when it comes out the jet engine, a normal jet engine with normal fuel, you get a contrail. Those are ice crystals. And so after about 3 miles, they dissipate, they sublimate, and you don't see it. So a normal contrail is only about 5 miles long. Now, full stop. When you burn fuel with aluminum in it, aluminum is interesting because it has a lot of available electrons. It likes to bond with, as water loves to stick to aluminum ions. So it is what you would call a condensation nuclei. Okay. So when it comes out, the water attaches to the aluminum and freezes. And then because the aluminum is so it likes to grab stuff and hang on to it, those ice crystals don't sublimate. They stay locked on the aluminum, and so you get these huge long clouds
Hmm.
of condensation nuclei. It's ice mixed with aluminum. And so what that does, the idea is to bounce sunlight back into outer space off the top of the clouds that they form. The problem with this is that aluminum, when it gets on the ground, prevents trees and plants from their uptake of nutrients. And it's a way of starving and they know this. They know you put aluminum on the ground, it'll kill trees. There is no organic life form on the planet, plants, fungus, algae, or other animals that use aluminum in their metabolism. Nobody uses that. No plant uses it. No human, no animal uses aluminum. It is toxic to all forms of life.
Mm. Well,
It
I
is
had
toxic.
an expert on that said that, just like you're saying, there's not necessarily, they're chemtrailing specific planes are doing that. Like you just said, it's in all the jet fuel, and
Yeah,
pretty much. So it's
yeah,
not
that's
an individual, conspiracy to do this, but in a broader scheme to, like you're talking about, bounce the sunlight back out. And I've heard some people say it's also to create a shield, basically, so we don't get hit by missiles and all kind of crazy stuff. So there's lots of different, people talking about that. So yeah, just like we were talking about before the show, you got some pretty big brains for a cowboy. I'm impressed.
yeah. I try to get rid of those pesky brain cells in college by drinking a lot of beer at the kegers. It didn't
It
work.
worked because you didn't get dumbed down. Good job. You
Yeah.
get the good stuff.
Well, anyway, yeah. So, yeah, the solar radiation management program has a lot of problems, and I think that they're not. See, they don't want to tell the public the truth about what's happening in the world. The reason being is a lot of people may not just go to work tomorrow. If they know how bad stuff really is,
Nice,
they
good
may
point.
not just go to work. They may, you know what? I need to retire early. I need to get what I can out of this life before this whole show caves in on us,
Yeah,
because the big corporations that run this country, it isn't the government, by the way. That the government and all
yeah,
the Congress critters, that's a kabuki show for the people. This
right.
government is run by big corporations, big American corporations and world corporations run the planet. And they want you to go to work every day because that's what keeps them rich and keeps them in doing what they want to do, which includes building underground cities right now so they can escape anything that may happen while we're busy on the top doing the work until we end up dead. We get dead, but they don't care because we're just we're expendables. So so we're expendable. But the thing is if everybody knew how dicey things are right now and what's going on, why are they spraying toxic aluminum? They know it's toxic. Why are they spraying in the atmosphere? There's something really bad that's about to happen. And I don't know if it's a solar maximum that
Yep.
they're trying to bounce back more extreme ultraviolet. There's things going on that they're not telling us, because if we know the truth, it's kind of like a few good men. You can't handle the truth. See, that the government actually believes that people can't handle the truth, but that doesn't even matter. We have a right to the truth. We are Americans. We have a right to the truth.
Yep, we do.
And denying us the truth is a crime. That is a crime. And so, people need to wise up. They need to start paying attention, and just like right now, when these fires are happening, if you don't wear carbon filters, the little mask isn't going to do crap. I mean, it gets the PM 2.5 off, but if you're not wearing a carbon filter, you're inhaling a lot of those volatile organic compounds that American Chemical Society says is there, not Bill Simpson. ACS says so, and they're the big dog. When they bark, you better listen because it's on the money. If you got to wear a carbon filter,
Yeah.
if you don't have activated charcoal, you're breathing that stuff in. And the other thing the supercomputer told me, beside that 36,000 people will die prematurely every year in the Western U.S. alone. It's a much bigger number across the whole U.S., by the way. 218 billion a year in damages, healthcare, loss of economic productivity. But it said that for every person that dies, there'll be 5 to 10 more comorbidities created.
Uh,
Those people will die outside the framework of the study. So
oh,
every study has to have a framework. How long are we going to study? And UCLA was 11 years. Well, you could develop a comorbidity. I'm a little kid. I'm outside playing, soccer, and I breathe some of this stuff in, and it kind of triggers a comorbidity in me. So now I'm 25 years old, and I'm getting married, and then the comorbidity manifests, and I die of an autoimmune disease.
mm,
I
yep.
develop lupus, or I develop some other thing, and I die. And so the supercomputer said there's 5 to 10 more cases that are going to be outside the framework of the study, and those people will die later,
Mm,
or they'll die young. And the impact of that, according to the computer, was $1.5 trillion a year.
Hmm.
I mean, the government is not paying attention here.
How many deaths?
Well, you could do the math. I mean, we're already talking 36,000. If we go with the low end of comorbidities, 5 people, for everyone that dies within the framework of the study, there's 5 more comorbidities on the low end, 5 to 10, the computer said. It's just 5 to 1. So it'd be 150,000 roughly a year. So,
and that's being,
they'll
it's been hidden from us. Yeah. So
yeah,
that's the math, guys. 150,000 and the 100 plus billion. Wow. And damage.
And I just don't want to sit here and make people feel bad or like there's no hope, because that's not the truth. There is a lot of hope here. We have a lot of hope, but the key,
we can get the workers out there to start doing their job like they've been doing for millions of years. When you told me that on another show, that they've been lying to us. They said, "Oh yeah, the Spanish came over and some horses got away, and that's why we have all these horses." They lie. They knew that. We've had horses here for millions of years. Why do they lie like that?
Money. It's all about the money. And here's the thing: the livestock industry has gotten too greedy, and and unfortunately, most of them are not highly educated. I'm a cowboy. I grew up in the livestock industry, FFA. I went to college, but I'm probably in the minority of ranchers, because most ranchers don't have a college degree. They just know how to grow cows and sell them fatted cows and make a profit, and that's the kind of the limit of their expertise. If you sit down and you want to talk about, pyrochemistry or climatology or organic chemistry or physics or any of those things, they have no knowledge of those subjects, but those are all subjects critical to life on Earth. And in fact, for your own health. Okay. So, Sun Tzu and some of the other great warriors, and I know you've read The Art of War, the key to survival is knowing the trap exists. That's the key to avoiding the trap. You have to first know it exists to avoid it. And right now, I'm pointing out this stuff, not to make people feel bad or hopeless. I'm pointing them out to say, look, here's the trap. Now, we know how to get around it. And the way we get around it is we reestablish this herbivory. That's how we get around the trap. That's how we devolve catastrophic fire. We can push it back, but see, now we're fighting the monetization. All these people that look forward to the fire season, I got people right in my own community that are sitting here twisting their mustaches and looking at their checkbooks going, yeah, I'm going to make a lot of money. I got a bunch of heavy equipment and a water truck. I'm going to get rich this summer. That kind of thinking is going to kill a lot of people. That is going to kill a lot of people. And people like you, our veterans who laid down their lives, we just celebrated Memorial Day. People are out there trying to save life by keeping evil away from our country. So, you don't want to have to fight a war on your own country, on your own soil, because we know how bad that is from the Civil War. We don't want to repeat any war on our soil. If you got to have a war, and I hate war, but if you're going to have a war, you don't want to have it on your own backyard. Absolutely. That's for sure. And so the bottom line here is we're pointing out these very real risks to everybody's health and to the health of our children and grandchildren and our own sustainability as far as staying alive on this planet and having a lifestyle, part of the American dream. I mean, why are we even working if we can't get the gold ring at the end of our retirement, if we're going to be dead? I don't want to be subservient to some big corporation, some fat cat somewhere that's got a 737 for his personal jet. I'm sorry, but that's not who I'm going to be. I swore an oath to defend the Constitution so that we can all have our freedoms and the right and ability to live the life that our Constitution guaranteed for the Americans, not just for the elite. It doesn't apply just to the elite. It's all of us. We're all in the same boat together. And if we don't pull together very soon, we're all going to be dead. If we don't start getting together and putting aside the petty baloney disagreements and realize who the real enemy is. Okay, it's the people who put money ahead of our own lives. That's the enemy.
Yeah.
It's not us. It's not. And the ranchers hate horse people, and horse people hate ranchers. That's got to go away. We don't need to have that fight. The government loves that fight because it keeps us divided against each other. We don't need to have that fight. Okay, and my plan, the Wild Horse Fire Brigade, it says a big long name, the Natural Wildfire Abatement and Forest Protection Plan. That's what the insurance industry calls it. If the horses are in the way somewhere, okay, good. Let's move them. Load them up, and we'll drop them off in the wilderness. You never see them again. Problem solved. But the problem we have is that everybody knows that our plan reduces fire. They know it. It's a fact. And when I talk to people about reducing fire, it's like I'm talking about taking money out of their wallet now. And that mentality's got to be ended. We have to condemn that mentality. Reducing fire has to be the emphasis. That means prevention. Firefighting comes after the disaster's happening. We're talking about prevention. So, on the Caldor fire scar in Tahoe there, you had a big fire because you don't have the herbivore you had before. 20 years ago, you didn't see those kind of fires up by Tahoe. No. You saw different kinds of fires that burn low and slow, and because you guys have fire-evolved conifers up there. So your conifers evolved in North America for millions of years with fire. Fire is not new, but it's different now. It's because it's hotter because we wiped out the lawnmowers. Nature had lawnmowers, the deer and the elk, and they'd mow the grass and brush down. So when fire burned, it burned low and slow. So we have an opportunity now to restore our herbivory, and we start with the horses. The horses aren't the silver bullet, but it's the first thing we can do immediately. Tactically, you got to do what's quick. And the first step, what can I do quick to slow this down while I figure out the next step? The next step is, of course, bringing back the deer and the elk, but that's going to take 10, 20 years. We're going to be gone by then. The smoke is going to kill a whole bunch of us and our friends. The forests are going to be burned to the ground. They're never going to come back because when you burn the forest this hot, it damages the soil. And now they're talking about putting glyphosate on the soil, which really kills the soil. I mean, the thing about glyphosate is it kills the cover crop that you need to stabilize the soil, which protects from erosion. Those roots and all the things that live in the soil, all the little critters, there's all kinds of microbacteria and mycelium and little tiny microbes. And all those little guys are down there. And what they do is they take inorganic minerals and they chelate them into plant food. Okay, so and when you go to the vitamin store, if you want a high quality mineral, it's chelated. So when you buy calcium carbonate because you want to make your bones strong, you've just made a mistake because you're just going to poop it right out. Your body can't absorb calcium carbonate. But if you get calcium citrate, it's chelated to an organic acid. That's like a trailer hitch for your body, for your enzymes and things to grab onto that calcium molecule and drag it into the cell. The citric acid that they attach to the calcium is a trailer hitch. So your body can grab it and drag it where it wants to use it. But if you just do calcium carbonate, no, can't use it. You just poop it right out. You just spend a lot of money for a bottle of nothing. You might as well go get some coral reef and eat that because it's the same thing. So the plants need chelated minerals. Okay, plants, trees, grasses, all those things, because that feeds everything else in the circle of life. The birds, the elk, the deer. You can't bring back the deer in Tahoe if you're killing the forage with glyphosate that the deer need. I mean, the hunters ought to be outraged by this. I have hunters who've been brainwashed by the BLM, by the way. I have hunters going, well, Bill, if you put horses, they're going to eat all the food the deer need. That's not true. That's false. That's absolutely false. Hansen and Lawhorn did a study, it was like 10 years ago, It's called the foods of the deer and the elk, the foods of deer, elk, and wild horses. They did a 7-year study. It was a multi-agency study, Forest Service, Davis, the Cal Fish and Wildlife. They found that deer and horses have a 1% grazing overlap. Cattle and deer have a 4% grazing overlap. Okay, I'm going to repeat that so the audience can focus. This is Hansen and Lawhorn. They can go look it up. Okay, they did a 7-year study. Horses only have a 1% grazing overlap with deer. Cattle have a 4% grazing overlap with deer. They eat 4 times as much as what the deer needs and the horses do. So see, the thing is they continually lie to the public to drive an agenda that's about money. It has nothing to do about protecting our lives or sustainable logging or sustainable fishing or sustainable forestry or any of those things, or even sustainable hunting. Now they want to put glyphosate on the ground all over the place in Tahoe, and that's going to damage that. You won't have a cover crop because glyphosate kills everything. It's an indiscriminate killer. Okay, it's going to kill the microbes in the soil that make plant food. It's going to kill the cover crop. So when you get rain, you're going to get erosion, you're going to get sedimentation into Lake Tahoe. You're going to get chemicals into Tahoe, into the lake. It's going to end up in your water supply. And I mean, this is just adding insult to injury. The fire was bad enough because it's their fault to begin with. They will let the deer get wiped out. That fire wouldn't have been like that if there was an adequate deer population. It would have burned low and slow. All the trees.
Even worse by putting the glyphosate down. Instead of bringing in, how many wild horses do you think could manage this? How many would it take?
Well, we'd have to come in there because right now there's nothing growing there. So, see, horses will reseed that area, by the way. You can't reseed it with glyphosate. Okay, so the horses will reseed it. And the interesting thing, if you're going to plant little conifers, horses don't eat conifers because the terpene profile is very distasteful. Terpene is a very distasteful thing. Horses won't eat conifers because of the terpenes. And so you put horses in there, they'll graze down the cover crop and keep it managed, but they won't graze it down to zero. Glyphosate takes it to the dirt. Horses will eat some and they'll leave a lot for the deer and the elk so they can recover. You need your deer and elk to recover. That's going to take 10 years or so. But the horses will be there in the meantime, lawn mowing. They'll do the landscaping for you. They'll reseed it. They'll reduce your erosion, and they'll minimize wildfires in Tahoe's area. And we could actually put geldings up there, so you don't even have a breeding herd. The BLM's got like 40,000 geldings, which are just big lazy lawnmowers. Geldings, all they want to do is take naps and eat. I know because I have 100 of them. Okay, I know what they do. We don't have 100. We have 100 wild horses we saved, and about 50 of them are geldings, 50 of them are mares. Some of those are sterilized. So, but we've studied the geldings extensively, and they just walk around and graze, and then they go take a nap under a tree. They don't make any trouble. They don't want trouble. But they're beautiful too because they draw tourism into the area.
Exactly.
You know what?
They got a beautiful lawnmower instead of crazy cattle that come in and just destroy everything. Now, you said in your scientific evidence in your article, glyphosate application after fires removes the very plants whose roots hold soil in place. Now, you said this earlier, but I want to have everybody understand that. So if you're going to put that into, like you said, to take out the herbivores, which is stupid. You want the herbivores to come back so that the deer come back, and in the meantime, you can have the deer or the horses, wild horses, come in and start to manage that. Now, would you have to actually feed the horses a little bit at first?
Well, what they would do is they move around. They move around, so they would graze. You have a lot of fuel in the other parts of the forest by the scar, right? So just outside the Caldor fire scar, you got grass and brush growing right now, and they want to put more glyphosate on that. So instead of that, the horses will graze on the outer edges of the scar, but then they'll walk across the scar and poop out seeds and fertilize the ground again. Perfect. And their poop contains microbiome. So that's what the soil needs. It needs microbiome. That's what people put in their gardens. They buy microbiome to make their gardens and their vegetables more lush. So they'll walk around, they'll poop on that, and you can actually we've done a lot of research up here, and I can feed my horses the seeds that I want them to poop out on my landscape. So I wanted to start having seed that would be good for my ground birds, you know, my pheasants and my turkeys and my quail. So I've been feeding my horses oats, whole oats, natural whole oats. Now, some of them they digest, but a lot of them come out in their poop and grow because horses are lousy digesters. About 90% of the seeds they eat come out in the poop and grow. That doesn't happen with ruminids. Ruminids, cows, sheep, goats, deer, and elk, they chew a cud. So when they eat seeded plants, they burp up the cud, they chew it over and over again like bubble gum. That crushes the seeds. So the seeds, their digestion is very good. So very few seeds survive all of that. But with a horse, no. A lot of seeds come out and grow like crazy. So we can actually take and manage some geldings in there. So you get tourism because you got beautiful wild horses. You got lawnmowers that keep it down. You got automatic gardeners that reseed and fertilize for you. And you don't need any chemicals at all. And oh, by the way, it's free because they do it for free. We get the horses for free to do it from the government. They got to give them to you if you ask for them under the Humane Transfer of Excess Animal Act. Any government agency can request them from the BLM, and they got to give them to you for free. And so you get them and you put them there. And then if they get injured or a lion eats them, that's just life because they've been eaten by lions for 1,000,000 years. That's natural selection. But they don't sue you. They don't need unemployment. They don't need retirement. You know, and then if you lose a few, you just get more from the government because they got 70,000 in a government prison that we all pay $100 million a year plus to feed hay. So this is a cost negative program, Michael. It's cost negative.
Now there's another proven natural alternative wild horse fire brigade model. And you talk about the Klamathon fire in 2018. Tell us a little bit about that, how the herd basically 200 heritage wild horses had naturally grazed and maintained a 5,000 acre fire resilient landscape. And the fire basically came up to that and stopped, and it saved Ashland, Oregon.
Yeah, that's correct. You know, so we had this 38,000 acre wind blown infernal. And by the way, it was intensely burning right over the land that cattle were on. Okay. It's just like the big fire we saw in Oklahoma and Kansas, almost 1,000,000 acres of fires that killed thousands of cattle. It burned the forage and killed all the cows. Thousands of cows have been burned in wildfires up in Montana and in Kansas and Oregon. They lost 300,000 cows in a big fire, I'm sorry, 3,000 cows in a fire in Southern Oregon, southeastern Oregon. I mean, these fires, this mentality that cows are the answer is absolutely not true. It's not true. Now, I'm not against livestock grazing. I think we need it. We got to produce beef, but we got to do it intelligently. We can't sell livestock grazing as a silver bullet for all of our wildfire problems because you can't put cattle into the wilderness. Cattle would be a disaster up around Tahoe. Nobody pays money. Tourists don't pay money to come see cows. They don't. But they do pay money. There's a lot of studies that show they pay millions of dollars a year to come see wild horses. And they come from outside the United States even to see them.
Yeah,
so the horses, the thing is this is a no-brainer. And we just got to get people to stand up and say, okay, let's do this. But the Klamathon fire was 38,000 acres, wind blowing, an inferno. And I was on the fire line 9 days watching what happened. By the way, wild horses are not afraid of fire. Why? Well, they were here before the Spanish even came with their domestic horses, and they saw volcanoes erupting. They saw lava. They saw fire. They saw it. So like Bruce Lipton says in the biology of belief, you know, there's epigenetic expression. When you have generations that experience a certain condition, the progeny know about it without training. That's why my cattle dog, I didn't train my cattle dog to herd right out of the box. He knew how to do it instinctively. That's epigenetic expression because his ancestors were trained and it became a genetic trait. Well, horses, wild horses, are not afraid of fire. I watched them during the fire. They would look up, they'd be about 100 yards away grazing. They'd look up, and if the fire kept moving toward them, they move away a little bit and just kept eating. They weren't panicked at all. Domestic horses that are
land is going to stop. It's going to stop at their land. They're in safe land. They know that from, like you're talking about, genetics. They've been there, done this for millions of years. Wow.
Well, Cal Fire.
Could wild horses actually graze with cattle and have an effect where there wouldn't be fires that would sweep across and just burn the heck out of cattle?
Well, I think the cattle guys want to have their cattle grazing to themselves, and that's fine. I hear what you're saying, and there are people in the regenerative farming that actually graze horses with cattle together, because they know the horses reseed so that there'll be plants next year for the cattle, right? But those people are progressive thinkers.
You'd have cattle in the area for a while, and then you bring in the horses, and just rotate them, right?
Yeah, they're doing, or they just commingle them together. But the thing is the lifestyle. Yeah, a lot of people do that now. But that's real forward thinking. You're a smart guy, so you're out there on the cutting edge. Well, the ranchers,
I've learned from you. I'm a knuckle dragger, but I'm observant, and I can learn quickly. So I hope everybody in the audience is doing the same.
Well, I'm having difficulty. I mean, there's people that are just stuck in their barnyard myths, and they don't want to evolve mentally. They don't want to be plugged in to the data. And so, but if we don't, like right here last year, we had a fire come out of Scott Valley that almost destroyed Etna, and it burned a lot of grays. A lot of browse got burned that are not going to be available at the end of that year. So going into the winter, a lot of that, it's lower quality grazing, but it's gone. It was not available because it all burned. I mean, the thing is greed. When you get too greedy, it ends up biting you in the butt. It bites you in the butt. And we need to.
In my audience, I have someone named Janet, and she's Northern California cattle woman, and she said that all the deer and wild horses, they should be protected. She says the cattlemen and the horse guys, they all get along. So there is possibility that people get it. Just have to a little bit of education. It's like in their best interest. Do you want to keep your cattle if there's a fire, or do you want them to die? It's I want to keep them. Okay, this is what you do. It's just very simple.
Yeah, and we don't have all that many horses left yet, Michael. Yeah. I mean, all in with the ones that are out there on the range that are still like in conflict with some of the ranchers in Nevada and Colorado and Utah and Montana. There's about 50,000 left on the open range. Half of those are sterilized already. And then we got about 60,000 in government holding, 70,000. All in, we only have 100,000 horses. We have eight.
Why does the government round them up and keep them in these pens and feed them?
Two reasons. One, it creates more grazing for the livestock industry. That means money. And two, the government knows they're in a native species. They know that. And they never say it, but they know it's true. They evolved here 55 million years ago, and they've always been here. They never went extinct. Not totally. And the Spanish brought additional horses. That's the true story. And they're different horses. They're big. The Spanish horses are cavalry horses. They're 1,400 pounds. Wild horses are 700-800 pounds. Most of our horses up here, you can't put more than 160 pounds on their back. That's it. Okay. The cavalry horse has got to carry 300 pounds, 400 pounds. So they brought different horses. So it was both. It wasn't one or the other. It was both. But we were down to about 100,000. And because of that, okay, they are technically an endangered species today, right now. They should be red listed, legitimately red listed on the Endangered Species Act. They're not. And the reason they keep saying they're invasive and all these lies that the BLM keeps putting out there is because when you have an endangered species on public land where you want to do gas, mineral oil extraction and livestock grazing, that's a problem. That's a problem for the corporate heads that run the country here. If you got endangered species out there, holy moly, it's going to cost you a lot more money to do whatever it is you want to do. If you want to do any kind of mining or extraction industry with an endangered species on the landscape, you can almost forget about it, right? So that's why they condemn them and lie about them, because they want to monetize all these public lands. I say, fine, just move the horses where they do good. There isn't that many. Where we can put them where you never see them again.
Before we get glyphosate in our water and we're swimming in it, and it's going to like take down our cellular structure. So we already have a problem. They found that back in the day, they used to take cars and just dump them into Lake Tahoe instead of taking them down to Reno and having them collected. So they would save a lot of money. They just dump old cars into the Lake Tahoe. Of course, the mafia used to dump bodies into Lake Tahoe. So there's they're talking about how, because it's so cold, they're preserved for a long time. But now we're starting to see some of that start to come up and pollute the water a little bit here and there. And so we don't need more. I think there's one you talk about in the study where Lake Tahoe used to have like 110 feet back in the 60s as far as visibility. Now it's down to 65 because the topsoil is running into the lake and so forth because the herbivores are not doing their job. And then the fires come in and just wipe everything out, and that gets into the water. It's a mess.
It is. We can do better easily.
Wild horses, hello.
Yeah, I mean, and we built America off the backs of these horses. We fought wars with them. I mean, I read a story about Sergeant Reckless, a U.S. Marine horse in Korea. He took 9,000 pounds of ammunition up a hill to support an effort on this war, and he saved soldiers' lives by acting as a shield for their bodies. He was wounded in battle. He got 2 Purple Hearts. This is a horse. I mean, one of many, many horse heroes. In fact, he's actually written up in America's top 100 heroes is Sergeant Reckless, and U.S. Marine Corps horse. And they have a monument down for him, I think at 29 Palms. But anyway, we've had a lot of that history with our horses. And, that's why President Nixon protected them in 71. I mean, we owe them everything. It's that simple. So if we lose our morals, if we lose our loyalty, if we have no camaraderie, if we keep fighting ridiculous fights, and if everything's about money first and everything second, we're toast. We're toast. As a human race, we're done. We're wiped out. We're already wiped out. We're just walking dead right now. Or we can start being smart and start doing some things that are going to change the outcome for ourselves and our families.
Yeah. I played this, I think, a little piece of this in another show, but it's worth showing a little bit. It's an 8-minute documentary. I'm going to show a couple minutes of it. AM Best, really, really good documentary. So I think this basically highlights, how it's in everybody's best interest that we have the wild horses. So let me pull this up and roll this a little bit here.
If we take these horses and we put them back into the wilderness, we can see wildfire management and fuel reduction by these horses on 1.5 million acres of selected lands.
Wildfires continue to wreak havoc on insurers' bottom lines. Last year, a number of these catastrophic events, along with drought and heat waves, accounted for approximately $18 billion in economic losses and nearly $9 billion in insured losses, according to the Insurance Information Institute. In 2022, there were more than 66,000 wildfires in the United States, 26 of which reached natural disaster status. I'm Lori Chortis for Invest TV. The California nonprofit Wild Horse Fire Brigade hopes to drive down those losses and mitigate catastrophic wildfires with its natural wildfire abatement and forest protection plan that relies on the help of an unlikely resource.
Wildfires require 3 key ingredients: oxygen, fuel, and an ignition source. Wind does not fuel a fire. Fuel fuels the fire. In this case, we're talking about grass and brush. We cannot change the oxygen content of the air, nor can we control ignition sources such as lightning or human behavior. The one thing we can control are annually occurring grass and brush fuels using animals such as wild horses that eat grass and brush, also known as herbivores. In the Western United States, we have a very well-known collapse of the herbivore. We may be down as many as 3 million deer in California, and Oregon is down approximately 500,000 deer. When you have a collapse of the herbivory, catastrophic wildfire evolves. By reestablishing the herbivory, what we do is we start reducing these fuels and we devolve catastrophic fires.
Being able to do vegetation control targeted on ground fuels, both at the individual property level and at the community level, is the #1 driver for decreasing risk.
These big, robust animals, weighing 1,000 to 1,200 pounds, rub up against low-hanging limbs. They call those fire ladders. They break them off. And so basically the tree is removed of all the low limbs, and they remove the grass under the tree because they're there under the tree resting, so they graze the grass, and they fertilize the tree with their droppings. So these trees are made fire resilient. Today in the United States, we have 60,000 American wild horses that have been captured off the wilderness and put into taxpayer-funded government holding, and we're feeding them the grass instead of leaving them where they're going to do some good for societies. Each wild horse will eat about 30 pounds of grass and brush a day, about 5.5 tons a year.
In the last 5 years, from the insurance industry perspective, the losses have not only doubled and tripled, but they're 10, 20, 50-fold as high as they used to be. It used to average $700 million a year in losses. In the 90s, now the insurance industry pays on average $7 billion.
These wildfires are doubling year over year, even as we're almost quadrupling money spent to stop them. And fuel reduction.
Wow, so it's incredible. The 10, 20, 50-fold increase. Wow. And there's an easy solution here. I don't see how there's a disconnect with people's brains, but obviously, like we've talked about, somebody's making money and they're throwing out confusion and lies to the public to get them to believe that this is the way we mitigate these problems. So Bill, you coming out and, speaking, it's been fantastic. Tell people how they can get hold of you, and plus you have good music. I wish I could figure out how to, get you on so I could play your music, but maybe at some point we will. But I highly encourage everybody to go to the website and listen to that one video that you have there. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. So our organization, we're an all volunteer nonprofit. We're a 501c3. So all donations are tax deductible. It's Wild Horse Fire Brigade. So it's 4 words, Wild Horse Fire Brigade. And if they Google us, they can find us. It comes right up. If they want to see that video you just showed, we have a dedicated site for the documentary videos about the fires. It's called Horse of Nature. So horseofnature.com. And people can go there and look at the documentaries, including the one you just showed by the insurance industry. We're supported by generous people who give us donations and allow us to keep working the way we are. I mean, we're supporting a herd of 200 horses up here because they're our community's fire department. I mean, but they're not a fire department that acts after we're already suffering fire and smoke. They're out there working right now while we're talking, and they're mowing the lawn for free. Our herd of horses is mowing the lawn right now. And so if we have a fire up here this year, it's going to burn low and slow, which is the fire you want, by the way. I'm not telling anybody we don't need fire. Actually, fire is cleansing in the forest if it's a proper temperature. So when I was young and we were logging back in the late 60s, early 70s, the fires then burned low and slow. You could walk right through the fire front. You could jump right through it. Today, the flames are 16 feet high off the grass and brush. You can't, it's an inferno. So by restoring, the first step is we got to get the remaining horses before they go extinct, and they will go extinct. If we keep going the way we are right now with roundups and sterilization, our herd, by the way, is the largest naturally living herd of wild horses in California and probably in the Western United States right now, because it hasn't been treated with Gonacon and these horrible drugs. It's, by the way, they're treating our wild horses with EPA registered pesticides. That's what the BLM is condoning. And there's nonprofits who don't like what we do because they're getting funded from the BLM to run around and sterilize horses with these EPA registered pesticides. And I mean, it's horrific. It's like that movie Idiocracy. I mean, I've got a John Wayne cup here that I drink my coffee out of, and it says, "Life is hard. It's even harder when you're stupid."
I love that. I love
that's
we had
quote from John
Deal.
Yeah. I mean, we got smart people out there. We just need to all get together and go, look, enough is enough. And let's end the baloney and let's start doing the right stuff here. Get these horses out there. The fire guys are going to have plenty of fire to go play with and make money. But if we take it down even 5%, when you're talking $218 billion a year in costs and hundreds of lives this year, based upon the UCLA study right here in my own county, Siskiyou County, based on the UCLA study on premature deaths, we're going to lose 100 of our friends and neighbors. That's the minimum. 100 of our friends and neighbors will die prematurely this year. Yeah. And I pray to God it's nobody that is one of my friends or neighbors. I mean, it's hard when you lose friends and family. I know all about that, but we're going to lose people. We are going to lose people. And I've told our board of supervisors that, and they won't respond to me. I get crickets. From them. And all they have to do is cooperate and collaborate. I'm not asking them to give me $100 million. I'm saying, look, we're going to do this for free. We'll help the county do it for free. And the horses are free. There's no money in.
Bill, I got the Frogman solution. We'll tell them how this should work, and if they don't accommodate, then we take them out. No, we would do that.
You might have to bring in the team.
If they had that option. I talked to someone, on another show, and this nurse, and she said they were getting, $500,000 for every COVID death in a hospital. And I was like, what if that was flipped? Everyone that came in and had COVID and they survived, they get 500 million that way. So we got to flip this stupid into smart. And the smart way is like, get those horses out there doing the work for us so we don't have to die and have to pay all this money. Hello, God, come on.
Yeah, we shouldn't have to get froggy with them, right?
I like the way you think it. Yeah, very good. All right. So great show as always. I hope this makes an impact. I'm definitely going to donate like always. And I hope everybody else is watching. You give a little something. It makes a difference.
It does.
God, come on.
It does. It really. I was able to buy a whole 3 tons of hay for my old horses because we have rare breeds. We have rare ancient breeds up here. So after the show, we got $1,200 from your generous donors. And I was able to buy 3 tons of hay and feed my old ladies and the old gals up here. They're rare genes, and they're always pregnant. They got a little baby on the side nursing because that's the regular progression of nature. And it gives them more life. It gives them a chance to live better. We take good care of our herd. We love them and we take good care of them. And the generosity of your supporters there made a difference. It really made a difference because there was horses that got some extra nutrition, and that really helps our herd. And then it helps me to then show people. We educate people up here too. We had kids up here from one of the elementary schools the other day. We're trying to help community. I do this for free. I'm 73. I've already done my part for King and Country and all of that. I'm just trying to save people around me and make a place for the kids coming up. That's it. Wow.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Bill. Yeah, we have some very generous people that watch the show. Thanks to everybody out there that did that. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's give some more. So you can have double that amount. That'd be great. So Bill, anything else that comes up like this glyphosate, craziness that they're trying to spring on us? Like another emergency that has to happen. There's no emergency here. Put the wild horses there. We have plenty of them. BLM has tons of them. They'll ship them up there. All you guys got to do is say, hey, bring them, because we want to save our soil. We want to save our land. We don't want to pollute the water here. And they'll bring them. Hello, come on. Jeez.
Yeah, the Chamber of Commerce ought to be behind this too, because the counties that have wild horse tourism, they're bringing in millions of dollars a year in extra income that they didn't have before. I have an RV park. I have an RV park down the road here. It's a Lazy Horse RV Park. By the way, if people want to come up and see our herd, they can go on TripAdvisor, find Lazy Horse RV Park on Copco Road in Siskiyou County, and they can stay there and see the herd. They do. It's a little tiny RV park. They do about $250,000 a year on horse tourism, just on the horses. The other they do $500,000 gross roughly. The other half is for fishing and hiking. Some of the other things that happen up here, but the horses draw a huge crowd. Tahoe could be part of that revenue stream. Wild horse tourism is a revenue stream. And I mean, they really do. People love these horses. There's a love of these wild horses that you can monetize that. Don't monetize fire that's killing people. Monetize these beautiful animals.
I know. I don't know how much the Caldor fire cost, billions or hundreds of millions or whatever it cost. Imagine putting that money into the wild horses and, these programs and helping people and having, people come and see the horses and make more money. Wow. I would just wish we had a little time machine where we could show people, okay, this is what would happen if the horses were here, and then people would see their land and their farms and their cities saved. And this is what happens if you don't. And then we run it ahead in time and everything's wiped out.
Well, Mike, we have that time machine because Colorado College came down here 2 months before our big fire right here and filmed the whole area. Yeah, and it's at Horse of Nature. That documentary that they did 2 months before the fire is called Fuel, Fire, and Wild Horses, where at that point I said, here's what's going to happen if we have a fire because the horses have the fuel down. Well, guess what? Then comes the fire. Everything I said in that documentary 2 months before the fire, everything I said came true. We saved the forest. It didn't burn. Our old growth conifer forest was saved. And the college town of Ashland was on ready standby to go. They told them, put your stuff in your car and get ready to leave. That's how close they were to getting burned in Ashland, Oregon. We stopped it because of the low fuels. It allowed them to contain the fire. The Cal Fire actually used the fire break from the horses to park men and equipment in a safe zone. The fire break from the horses became the safe zone, and we operated out of that. I know because I was on the line 9 days. So this is just a home run. It is a home run, and we got to do it. These people, they can make money. They just have to coordinate with us, and we show them how we all make even more money. We can make more money.
There you go. Beautiful, Bill. So yeah, I'll put all these links in the description box. So everybody's watching. I already put them in the chat, but you guys are watching it later on. It'll be in the description box. So you guys can go watch some of these films and get motivated, and then contact, your civil servants and have them get busy get busy to make you guys money instead of having everything destroyed and your safety and your health destroyed. So it's a win-win, easy situation. So let's get busy, guys. All right, Bill, thanks so much for coming on. Look forward to the next one. And everybody that came in, thanks very much. And everybody that donates, thank you even more. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you, Michael.